Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a retail preview of this game right here. I cannot think of a better game for this channel. This is called Garden Guests. It is published by Ryder Games, who's helping sponsor today's video. It is designed by Stephen Glenn and illustrated by Christina Derrick, which I wanted to point out to the illustration because the illustration in this game is very unique because it is like paper cutout art, which I think is so cool, and I've never seen that in board games before, so I think it's really awesome that this game is introducing a different medium into the board game illustration world. So all of the illustrations that you see here were actually cut out by hand with paper and then actually put into digital art. So really wanted to point that out quickly. But yes, Garden Guests is a game for 2 to 6 players. It plays in about 30 minutes and is ages 8 and up. And the main mechanics for this one are pretty interesting. It is a little bit of route building as well as a slightly abstract game, as well as it is a team game. And it is a limited communication game. So if you guys want to see more about Garden Guests, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. And comment down below if this is one that you are interested in. Like I mentioned, this is not coming to crowdfunding. It is a straight to retail game. So Ryder Games will have this available in retail starting, I believe, in mid-November. So definitely check it out when you guys are watching this. It is most likely already out in retail. I believe you can pre-order it on the Ryder Games website. Without further ado, let's get into this preview of Garden Guests, shall we? All right, so getting into the first section of this video, typically with my previews, I go into an aim of the game, then point out a lot of the components for the game, and then we'll get into a quick overview, how to play the game, and then we'll wrap up the video. So starting out with the aim of the game. So basically you are going to be working on teams. You can play this individually, you can play it on teams, but basically when you play it on teams, you are not allowed to talk to your teammate about strategy. So obviously if you're playing this individually, you won't have anyone else to talk about your strategy. It'll all be in your head. But if you are playing this as teams, which you can play up to 3 teams, there's going to be 3 different kind of sections or 3 different player colors. There is black, white, and a really pretty like mustard color. I will admit I do love the color scheme of this game. I love when games have really unique color schemes. I'm always never a fan of like the whole, you know, basic red, blue, yellow, and green. I really like when games introduce some really unique colors to games. So the player colors of the more neutral colors really catch my eye. And then obviously you guys can see the gorgeous art on the board as well. But yes, you're going to be playing as either the yellow team, the black team, or the white team. And your goal as a team is to create an uninterrupted line from one side of the board to the other. You are playing as beetles, and your beetles are trying to obviously kind of go across the garden and create this uninterrupted line. And you're going to be doing this by doing one action on your turn. Obviously, if you're playing it in teams, each player on that team will have a turn, and you're going to be playing one action on your turn out of 4 different actions that you can go into. So we are going to get into those, but you're going to be placing colonies on the board. You're going to be placing your, I believe they're like stone tiles or like stone paths, I guess. You're also going to be getting cards in your hands. Those are going to be the way that you're going to be playing these colonies or building these colonies, as well as playing down these paths. And then you can also, when you're playing on a team, you can also like give cards to your teammate, which obviously you cannot talk about your strategies. So when you are handing off your cards to your teammate, you are kind of trying to think what they need, because obviously your teammate can't be like, oh, I could really use this card right now. You kind of have to connect to your teammate and kind of look at what they're doing and hopefully kind of think of what they need. So those are going to be the 4 different actions that you can do on your turn. And like I said, you can't talk about strategy with your teammates. So that is the aim of the game. You're trying to go from one side, your home. There's going to be a home on both sides for all 3 of the teams. So here you guys can see that there's a line of white here. That is the home of the white player. And then there is a home on the other side. So you're just trying to go from one of the hexagons on the one side of the board, home, and then to the other hexagon on the other side. So that is everything for the aim of the game. We're going to get into quickly the components. So obviously you guys can see in front of me here, this is a prototype, but I'm assuming this is pretty close to final production because the production is wonderful. You have acrylic tiles, you have a really nice board, you have some nice cards. So I'm assuming it's pretty close, but it is still a prototype, so keep that in mind. But we have the full board here. This is the hexagon board. I think it's a hexagon. And you have all of the different hexagons on the board. You also have all of the different pedestals, which we'll get into that. When you're building your colonies, you can only build them onto the pedestals. And then once you do have 2 pedestals, you can alternatively create a path between 2 pedestals. So that's going to be how you create your path from one side of the board to the other. So you have that board there. Like I mentioned, you do have all of the different homes on the outside as well. Each player or each team is going to have a deck of cards. So each of them are going to have a slightly different beetle. This one here looks like this. Obviously, again, this was a paper cutout, which I think is very cool. I believe she mentioned, the artist, I was watching a video, she did paint onto the paper first and then cut it out. But you also have the yellow player with this beetle here. And then you also have the black player with this beetle here. And I will mention the whole not being able to talk to your teammate is a little bit incorporated into the theme, where I guess the beetles like a quiet garden. They like peace and quiet. So when you are too loud and you are talking with your teammate, it's kind of bugging the beetles. So you are trying to stay as quiet as possible in the garden, which I think ends up making the experience of playing this game very tranquil. But yes, each of the different teams is going to have a deck of cards. They're also going to have some collection cards. So the beginning of the game, these are set to certain numbers based off of the player count. So it's going to be slightly different based off of player count. But this is going to determine with some of the actions that you have, how many you, or like how many cards you're going to be able to take, or how many cards you're going to be able to give to your teammate. So those are those. And then once you do, let's for example, I give my teammate 3 cards, I would flip this over to the other side, and then these would then be my collection card numbers. I will also mention for the decks of cards, they are going to be compiled of different flowers. So these are going to be the cards that each player or each team is going to have. There are 4 different colors of flowers. There's going to be the pink, there's going to be red, there's going to be purple, as well as this peach color. And then there's also going to be, I believe, 4 in each of the team's deck that is a wild. So this can be used as any one of the 4 flowers, and your deck is going to be compiled of all of these. And eventually you're going to be playing down those cards in order to build those colonies and build those paths. So you have your cards, and then you also have your guests, which are your like beetle tiles. These are going to be the ones that you're going to be placing onto the pedestals, so the larger hexagons on the board. And then you're also going to have your stone path tiles. So these are going to be smaller acrylic tiles that are just plain colored in your team's color. And then those are going to be the tiles that you're going to be creating those paths with. So each of the different teams is going to have all of those components. So the cards, the larger beetle tiles, as well as the smaller path tiles. So you have the white teams as well as the black teams. And then lastly, you have these pedestal markers here. So these are going to be used once you have created a pedestal pile, a colony on that pedestal. Before a team actually makes this pedestal their own by connecting that pedestal to another pedestal, that pedestal can be taken over, and that's why you want to place the different pedestal flowers on top of that pile or that colony, so that the other players or the other teams, if they do want to take over that, they immediately know what flower they need in order to take over that pedestal, because the colony markers or the beetle markers are going to be covering up what flower is there. So that just makes it a little bit easier for players to see what flower is on that pedestal. So yes, those are all of the different components. Obviously you have the box as well as the rule book, but those are all the different components, and that is a little aim of the game. But let's get quickly into a little bit of an overview of how Garden Guests plays. So starting with the first player, which I do believe the first player is determined by whoever was in a garden last, or maybe whoever was gardening last. But basically whoever the first player is, whatever that team is, you're going to be going first, and you're going to be picking one of those actions. It'll then go to the next team, and then if you are playing in 2 teams, it would go to the second player of the first team, the second player of the second team, and then back around to the first player of the first team. But you can play this with up to 3 teams, obviously, because there's 3 different player colors. So you can do 3 groups of 2. You can, I believe, do 3 groups of 1, and then obviously you can do 2 groups of 2. And then you can also play this at odd numbers. So you can do 3, you can do 5 as well, so that'd be 2 groups of 2 and 1 group of 1. And with that player count, having the 2 groups of 2 and the 1 single player would go twice in a round, so that every team had 2 turns. So getting into the 4 actions in more depth, the first action is very simple, and that is collecting flowers. So this is going to be determined by your 2 numbers here. So for example, you might start with a 1 and a 3, and if you are taking the collect flowers action, you can actually choose one of your collection cards. So for example, I could choose maybe my 3, I could flip that over to the 2 side, and I would be able to pick up 3 flowers from our draw pile. So this example here, I picked up 2 of the peach flowers and 1 of the purple. I will also quickly mention that your hand limit is 15. So if you ever collect flowers that is more than 15, you do have to discard down to 15. But yes, that is the first action, that is collecting flowers. The second action is going to be building a colony. So this is going to be you looking at the board and seeing all of the different pedestals. And basically what's going to happen is you are going to play any number of the same type of flower card onto a pedestal that matches that flower. So for example, I could actually play these 2 peach cards. I would discard those. I would take 2 of my, which actually in this situation I did draw from the yellow, so we're going to take 2 of the yellow beetle tiles. I would stack those one on top of the other, and then I would place that onto this pedestal here. That was the peach flowers. And then with one of the pedestal tokens, I would take that and then place it on top. So because this one is not connected to another pedestal, this one is open for any team, any other opponent to actually take over this colony. So if a team wanted to take over this colony, they would simply just have to play cards more than what is there. So for this example here, another team or an opponent would have to play more than 2, so 3 or more peach flower cards in order to take over this pedestal. I will also quickly add that you can put a colony onto one of your home tiles. So the home tiles, like I mentioned, are the lines on either side of the board. Each of the teams is going to have 2 homes, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do, is you're trying to connect one of your home tiles to another one of your home tiles on the opposite side of the board. And you can actually put a colony onto one of these home tiles by pretty much just discarding 1 card. So if I wanted to put 1 colony onto one of my home tiles, I would just simply discard a card. I could discard whatever flower I wanted, and then I could add one of my beetles to one of my home spaces. And the home spaces are the only spaces that other teams cannot take over. Once you have placed one of your beetles on a home space, it's solid and no one can take it over. Moving into the third action, that action is laying a path. So whenever you in the game have 2 different colonies, you can actually decide to lay a path. And this means that you are going to discard cards based off of the flowers in between those 2 colonies to kind of create a path from one colony to another colony, or from one pedestal to another pedestal. So for example, with this one here, there is 1 pink, 3 red, and 1 peach in between these 2 pedestals. So I could decide, once I had the correct flowers in my hand, for my turn, I could discard 3 reds, I do actually have a wild in my hand, so that can be used as any flower, and then 1 peach. I could discard those 5. I could take some of my path tokens here, and I could create a path 1 pink, so that'd be my wild, 1, 2, 3 of the reds, and 1 peach to connect those 2 colonies. And then once this was connected, that would actually solidify those 2 pedestals there. So no other team could actually take over those 2 pedestals. So this is the only way to kind of solidify your path from your one side to the other, and make sure that no other teams can take those spots over. So once you have connected 2 different pedestals together with a path, that is a solid path, and that is all yours. No team can take it over. So what I did here is I just took off the different piles of beetles in that specific colony, and then I just left 1 of each of them on these 2 pedestals to kind of denote that those are the yellow team's property, if you will. And then the last action that you can choose to do, and this can only be done, like I said, if you are on a team. So if you have someone to pass flowers to, and that is the passing flowers action. And this, again, much like collecting flowers, is determined by the numbers you have on your collection cards. So you're going to be flipping over one of the numbers. So for example, I could actually flip over the 1. I could decide, hey, I'm gonna give my teammate 1 of my cards. I would give that to my teammate. I would flip over the 1 because that would actually allow us to reveal the 4 because the 4 is on the opposite side of the 1. So obviously the 1 is going to be not the best option, but it would then allow you to have the 4 for your next turn, or whenever you decided to either collect flowers or pass additional flowers. So that is good. And then obviously on the other side of the 2 is the 3. So yes, that is the last action, the passing to your teammate. So those are the different actions that you can perform when playing Garden Guess. You have those 4 different actions to choose from. On your turn, you are simply just doing 1 of those 4 actions. This will continue until one team has successfully built a path from one side of the board to the other, starting with their home tile and ending with their home tile. And whatever team does that will be the winner. So that is pretty much everything for an overview of Garden Guess. I will also additionally say that there are a few mushroom spots here, and mushroom spots are going to be spots that no team is allowed to build on. So there's 1 mushroom icon at the very center of the board, so no team can actually build on this center pedestal, and then there's ones in the corners of all of the different hexagons. So that is just an additional little rule there, or additional thing on the board, but I believe that is everything. There might be some smaller additional rules there, but that is everything for the overview of Garden Guess. All right, friends, so that's going to be everything for today's video and this retail preview of Garden Guess. Like I mentioned, this will be available probably when this video goes up, so definitely go and check it out. It will be released to retail, and also most likely will be available on the Ryder Games website, so I will have that link down below. But yes, huge thank you again to Ryder Games for sponsoring today's video. If you guys enjoyed, please give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below if Garden Guess is one that you want to check out. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.